Everyone has different needs, and your asset allocation should meet those unique needs. Unfortunately, most federal employees take the easy road by choosing Lifecycle Funds and don't understand if they're truly matching their risk tolerance or their long-term needs. It's very easy to create an allocation once you know the fundamentals. And in this episode, we're going to help you understand how to maximize your Thrift Savings Plan allocations and also stay away from some of the dangers of the Lifecycle Funds. Welcome. I'm Ed Smith, President of Valor Wealth Partners, where we're dedicated to educating federal employees on how to maximize value from their complex and often underutilized benefits. We serve three distinct groups of federal employees. The first one is early to mid-career. The second, pre-retirees, and then finally the retirees. And just because somebody is in a specific group or a specific age does not mean they invest a specific way. You might have a younger employee that is extremely conservative, while you have a retiree that's very aggressive because they feel very comfortable with the pensions that they've earned. So you have to be making sure that your asset allocation is true to your personal needs and not that fits the norms that people tell you they do. Hopefully you're enjoying the videos that we put out. And if you do, please subscribe to them. If you want to be notified when we have a new video, just click the bell. Now, this video is the third in a series about the TSP in retirement. The first one was the TSP in retirement. Then we did the dangers of the 4% rule. And then finally, TSP asset allocation. And so you can go back and find those videos, or you can just be notified when these new videos come up. And if this is very valuable, please like the video so we know that this is the content that you want to see and we'll create more of it. And again, don't keep us a secret. Let all your friends know that we're here and we're very willing to help them understand their benefits and how it fits with them through financial planning. To set your TSP allocation, you first have to look at your big picture. And this is all of your assets or all of your investable assets. And there's certain components of each one of those different things to look at. The first one will be your reserves. Now, your reserves should never be in your TSP. This should be in some type of account and does not have to be cash. It could be a bond portfolio that you have, but it should be something that you can access outside of retirement accounts in case something bad happens to your family and you need to access money. You also have to use long-term tax strategies to get a better net return after taxes. And one of the ways to do this is assets outside of your TSP, like tax-efficient portfolios such as municipal bonds, or maximizing long-term capital gains, which could be lower than your marginal rate. Now, as a reminder, your TSP is taxed both on the principal, the amount you contribute, and the returns of your portfolio at your marginal tax rate, which is how much you earn in a year. And when you hit retirement, this would be your pensions plus your Social Security plus your TSP, which could get very high, and I see it time and time again for many federal employees that this rate is very high. So you want to be able to look at the big picture, making sure that the components that you can separate out are maximizing both reserve levels and tax strategies. Beyond that, then we want to start looking at your TSP assets and how you diversify inside your Thrift Savings Plan. The best way I have seen to explain asset allocation is from a circle and different sizes of pie. And the different sizes of pie that you have are dependent on the risk levels you can take for different types of investments. So maybe the stock portion or the bond portion or international portfolios. They all have different parts, and you want to make sure your asset allocation is best suited for you. In the TSP, you have 5 different choices. Now, is that good or bad? Well, it's very simple, but it doesn't meet really good asset allocation standards. In Morningstar, in the United States, there are 122 different categories that you can invest in. Those categories are broken down into 9 different category groups. So if you're just looking at the category groups, the 9 that Morningstar has, compared to the 5 that you have in the TSP, you're still underserved. And not to mention all 122 of the different categories that are available. But to be fair, in those 9 category groups, One of them is municipal bonds, which you should not be putting in your TSP because of the tax advantage that we just talked about. And the other one is the allocation category, which is more like your L funds or your Lifecycle Funds. So, according to Morningstar, you really have 7 different category groups compared to the 5 that you have with the TSP. But even with those 2 groups taken out, there is still a lot more diversification you could have going outside of your thrift savings plan. We've put a link in our description section so you can actually go to the Morningstar website and see all of the 122 different categories and those 9 categories. It is a very valuable research report. While you can create a really great core portfolio, there are some downsides. And one of those downsides is you cannot have 2 different allocations for your Roth and your traditional components. There's big tax benefits that you could do if you could separate these different allocations. You really want to maximize the growth on the Roth component because you're not going to pay taxes on the growth. So to do this, you would have to have an allocation that has the C, the I, and the S funds in there because those are the most growth portfolios. Meanwhile, the F and the G, you would want to have in the traditional component because you're not going to have as much growth, but you're going to have stability. Less growth means less taxes in the long run. And because you can't separate these out and you only have one allocation, you have 2 choices. One of them, your Roth component gets a less rate of return because of the allocation overall, which means you lose some tax benefits, or you make the overall portfolio more aggressive, which means that you have to pay more taxes on the other portfolios like in the G and the F fund. And there's no way to get around these unless in retirement you roll them over into IRAs and you separate the 2 portfolios. I mentioned earlier that there's dangers with using the Lifecycle Funds, and I feel very strongly about this. But there are some good reasons why you should use the Lifecycle Funds. So let's take a closer look at them. Now, the Lifecycle Funds, or the L funds, are the same 5 funds that you have available to use individually, but they're built into 10 different portfolios. And these 10 different portfolios are built over every 5 years, and then the income fund that you're using if you're in retirement. So when are the Lifecycle Funds good for you? Well, if you're not watching your portfolio, which I highly recommend not doing, the Lifecycle Funds could be good for you. Now, you should be watching your portfolio at least annually, but I recommend quarterly or more frequently. But if you really don't want to watch this, and maybe every 5 years you might check in, the Lifecycle Fund will give you a little bit of protection that they're being rebalanced on a quarterly basis and staying true to the asset allocation that you feel you should be. The second place that I find the Lifecycle Funds could be beneficial is if you don't have a lot of knowledge in designing a portfolio and you refuse to hire a professional to help you get that allocation right. So these are 2 examples where the L funds could be beneficial, but in both examples, I think that you're missing some opportunities to really help you and your family get the best out of your thrift savings plan. The L funds were designed to be age-based portfolio to make it very simple for you to decide a portfolio so you can help plan for retirement. Now, they're rebalanced on a quarterly basis, and these portfolios will automatically shift from a more risky to a more conservative portfolio the closer you get to retirement. So they are really good in that stance. The year does confuse people, and most people believe the year that they're investing in is different than what it actually is. Let's take, for example, the L2040 fund, or the Lifecycle Year 2040. Most people believe the 2040 is the year they're going to retire, and it is actually the year you plan on making distributions from your thrift savings plan. Well, what's the difference? Let's say you retire early, and you're not planning on taking distributions until your mid-60s. Your retirement date and your distribution date are completely different and maybe 10 years apart. So you have to be looking at that maybe you're getting into a more conservative portfolio than you should be because you think that it's based off of your retirement date, not your distribution date. And while these portfolios are very simple to understand, that in an L2040 is the year you're going to take money out in the year 2040, this is saying that every federal employee that is going to retire in the year 2040 is exactly the same for their risk tolerance and their needs in retirement. This is completely ridiculous. Most people have extremely unique needs, and they have to address their unique needs and their specific risk tolerance different than what a schedule says they are going to need for their investments. In my opinion, the biggest danger of using the Lifecycle Funds is how the allocation of the underlying investments change as you age. Now, most people can understand that you want to have more bonds in your portfolio as age because it's more conservative. But the TSP Lifecycle Funds are a little bit different. Specifically when you look at the F Fund. Now, the F Fund is for fixed income or a bond portfolio. In this fund, it goes from an 8% allocation in the L2050 to only a 6% allocation in the 2025 portfolio, which should be a lot higher. But for some reason, they've decided that you should have less bonds in the F Fund as you age and you get older. I have never seen this in any other portfolio that uses an age-based strategy. It's just completely unheard of. Now, to be fair, as you can see in the chart, the G Fund does grow drastically. But the G Fund is a very unique portfolio, and you should have a balance between the G and the F to compare each other into retirement, so in case one does not do so well, like the G Fund, you have the backup or the extra return that you would get in the F share. So you really want to be able to look at what's best for you and try to design a personal asset allocation instead of using the Lifecycle Funds or relying on the Lifecycle Funds. So please take a look at this and see if it's best for you. To help you do a little bit more research, we've included a link in the description section, which is the TSP fund information. Now, this comes directly from the tsp.gov website. I promised you a free risk assessment, and this is the point that we're going to talk a little bit about that. We use a program called Riskalyze to help evaluate people's individual risk scores. But in reality, you want to be able to look at 3 different risk scores. The first one is what your personal risk score is based off of your thoughts and how you feel about the markets as they are today. The second risk score is what you currently have for a risk on your portfolio. And the third risk score is what your portfolio should be to have a combination of both how you feel about risk to achieve the goals that you have in life. So you could have 3 different risk scores: what you feel, what your current portfolio is, and what you need to achieve your goals in life. There's a video that we have to explain the value of Riskalyze, and there's a link on the top of the video, so you can be able to click on this and actually get a very good feel for what Riskalyze can do, and it explains it really good in this short video. In the description section, we've also included a link so you can get your own personalized risk assessment. If you want help understanding what your current portfolio is or what you need, we would have to have a deeper discussion, and we'd be available to do that as well. Hopefully today's session has been extremely valuable for you. And in summary, I just want to bring up a couple of points that we talked about. First, it's looking at your big picture asset allocation before you look at your TSP. But then, how does your TSP fit into that big allocation? Then you want to be able to look at your funds that you have available as a core portfolio from your TSP and the other ones that are available for you. I also want you to feel very comfortable that you have designed the best allocation for you that's either through the individual 5 funds or the L funds if you do choose to use them. And please take the free risk assessment. It's just going to benefit for you so you can see a different way of assessing your risk. We want the best solutions for you and your family, so please find unbiased, conflict-free advice so you can get the best planning solutions for you and your family. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to educating you in the next video.